Today I just want to share my story. Remember these days as if they were yesterday, because these were the very foundational days that laid out my life as to what it is today. I went to my peddler and I bought a lot of weed, and I went and I stashed it in my house. There were voices in my head telling me, "Teddy, it's all over for you." I was actually considering taking my own life. I was down on my last rope. But then this voice was coming so loudly, audibly, but then it was coming from here. I had never experienced anything like this before. I mean, I have had dreams, but then not like this. They were like I was there. There was like I was physically there. I cannot explain it. Hey there, this is Ted. Welcome to my YouTube channel for this and that faith, culture, life talk and all. Like and subscribe to all the socials. Now, be enlightened. Hi, my name is Teddy, and I have had this whole idea to just come and share my story, and this has been a long time coming, but I thank God that God is really able to just push someone, and He's able like to really get you moving even when you really don't want to move. I haven't been wanting to move, but God has just been very adamant, because He gave me a story, and I have been sitting silent with it, even though I do share whenever I get a chance, whenever I meet somebody and I want to tell them my story. So the best way that I know how to evangelize, the best way that I know how to tell somebody about God or talking about my faith is just basically by telling them my story. And I have had this coming, and I'm glad that God had to really kind of like twist my arm until I got to this place where I can be able to do this, and I'm looking forward to this. So I'm really nervous. Never been up in front of a camera before. Okay, well, I think I have, but well, that was on a different case. But this one, when you know that really the rubber has to hit the ground, well, things really get into it. So I'm excited for this journey that I'm about to partake, and it's gonna start today. In this very day, I'm excited about it because I want to reach out. I want to share my story to get to talk about my faith, to talk about who God really is and He means in my life. And the best way that I know I can do that is by sharing my stories on a YouTube YouTube channel, which is going to be coming up pretty soon. But today I just want to share my story of how I really came, of how all this came to start, of how I came to know Christ, of how I came to the faith. So I really hope that and trust that God will really be the one who speaks through me, I just don't want to be the one doing it in my own ability. I want God Himself to do it. Yeah, so here goes. Growing up in Nairobi was such a hard thing. Such a hard thing, especially for a teenager, because in the years 2015 and 2016 and 2014, I used to live around Kayole, and that was when there was all these gangs rising up, coming up, and Kayole was an unruly place to for a teenager, especially, or for a youth. I was just like after high school, and these gangs were going up and down, stealing and doing all sorts of evil things, and it was such a hard place for me to live in. And I remember my sister. Now my journey starts when my sister called me, and she told me to move to Nakuru. I really had I'd never gone to another. I never lived in another town before, except I lived in. For a very short while, I'd lived in Naivasha because I used to school there when I was in primary school, but I had never lived for the long haul in another city before. So she was calling me to leave, to go to move to Nakuru from Kayole, and in my mind, I had never pictured any other place where I could live that was better than Nairobi. Nairobi was everything for me, and mind you, in those times, I had friends that I had very bad friends. I had an influence that was so wrong for me. I had all sorts of characters that were really not the best for me, even though in the back of my mind I knew that those were really not my type of friendships if I was gonna, become a better man in society. So my sister called and she told me to move to Nakuru. I was a bit hesitant, but she kept persisting. I thank God for her persistence, because one day I really could not have enough of the streets of Kayole, and I told her, hey, you know what? I'll move, I'll consider. Let me go to Nakuru, I'll stay there for a week. She was the one who actually offered that to me. She offered to she offered for me to go to Nakuru, stay there for a week, see how it goes. And if I like it, then I can move there and go to school there. So I accepted, so I went. And as I went, I remember I was amazed, because I loved the atmosphere of Nakuru. I loved the ambience. I loved how you could walk freely without seeing policemen anywhere. I loved how you could just be free with yourself. I loved how you could just walk around, unlike in Nakuru where there were policemen everywhere. You would never walk anywhere without you getting caught by a policeman, being asked like, where you moving, where you going, And I remember it was hard for me. And so when I got there, I was amazed by the atmosphere. So when I moved there, I was completely new. I had no friends. I was all new. I was starting all over again. I was starting my life all over again, and I was excited about that. Even though I was a little bit scared, I was excited. So I loved the experience. I was eager to begin a new life all over again. And so I enrolled myself in a school, which is in an IT school. I enrolled myself in an ICT diploma, I remember, and that's when I started having new friends. But my life in Nakuru still wasn't really much of a huge change, even though there was the whole aspect of moving different geographical places. But I still had kind of like the character that I still had picked up from Nairobi. So it was. I found myself as well in such a short notice. Actually, I found myself in a clique, in a friend group that still really wasn't that better for me, especially in school. So my life started kind of like spiraling again, even in a new place, even in a new city. In 2018, I was working at a cyber cafe. And in this cyber cafe, I had kind of like found my identity in that. I had placed, not found, but I had placed my identity in this job. And it was owned by a certain lady, of which I'm not going to be mentioning names. And I had found sort of like a purpose there. I loved the idea. I could wake up in the morning, go to my workplace, and the idea of just helping somebody, serving, that made me feel alive almost every time. And I was working, I was happy there until my happiness was short-lived. I remember that my employer at the time sort of kind of like started treating me different. I had clients, I had all these clients that I had gained trust with. I was almost like a personal assistant of their work. I would do almost every sort of their of their work, at the cyber cafe, and they had trusted me. We had built a relationship with my clients. I was sort of thriving from there, but my life there kind of like was short-lived. She kind of started treating me different, and that was kind of like when I started getting bored, going to work. The thrill to go to work in the morning kind of died down, and I started losing the morale. And so one day, some of my clients would hear her just like, she would come maybe at some. I had built up a character for myself that wasn't really that much, pleasurable, I guess. Guilty, yes. Even for her, because I used to hang around girls. I would bring girls around at the cyber cafe. Well, mostly it was, for the wrong ideas, but she would come, she would find girls sitting there in the cyber cafe, and she would, she'd start, kind of like scolding me, like, Teddy, why do I always come and find girls sitting around? Then I don't like this, I would tell her that they are using the Wi-Fi, but really that wasn't totally true. But it kind of like started going, it started really becoming such a thing, the way she would come and she'd look at the books, and by the time, the cyber cafe was really doing very well at the time, but she would always find a reason. And so the helicopter kind of like monitoring wasn't really happening for me. It wasn't really making me comfortable in the place anymore. So I told a friend of mine that was a supervisor at a certain restaurant. I told him, like, he was a buddy of mine actually. I told him, hey man, I really am not feeling this job anymore. I just want to quit. I just want to quit, but I want something. I want to find something before I quit. I want to find myself a job before I move on. So he saw it, because he had at some point was there when my employer would come, and sometimes just in her moods would come and like scold and just lash out words, and she would become bitter and angry. So my friend then at the time, he witnessed one of that, and he told me, like, hey, you know what, I've seen how she treats you, and man, hey, you really need to get out of this place. So one day he calls me and he tells me, hey Ted, you told me that you're going, you want to get out of there. So there is this madam that came from Paris. She started off a school around here, and she said that one of our employer kind of like quit on her, and so she's looking for somebody. And she went on saying that she's looking for somebody who can speak English, And I remember that, hey, yo, man, you can really rap. So he told me the pay, and I was like, what? she's paying that much? No, man, I really want this job. So I went. She told me he told me the interview is was on Friday. He told me the interview is on Friday, and so I went for the interview. I wanted this job so bad, because first of all, I was being paid 3 times what I was being paid at the cyber cafe. Even though I loved the cyber cafe job because it it made me feel like I was off purpose, made me feel alive serving people. But I wanted to come out of that place so bad. So I remember I went to my cousin who lived around there, just very close to me. I went to him and I told him, hey, there's this job interview that I want to go to, and I want you to give me one of those suits you wear. Those fine suits you do wear, I want you to give me that. And he told me, Teddy, if you really want this job so bad, why don't you go to church and pray about it and ask God to, to give you this job. And so, a little backstory, I wasn't raised in a Christian background. I didn't know much about God. In fact, I failed CRE. I really, really failed CRE. I knew nothing about God. Occasionally, when I was a child, I would go for Sunday school, but it was all for the wrong reasons. I just went there to play. Yeah, I just went there to play. So I didn't know much about God. He was telling me to go to church and pray for the interview. I could take any advice. So he gave me a suit. He told me, take these certificates of yours, go lay them at the altar. Back then I used to go to Mountain of Deliverance church, but I would go there after 3 months I'd go once, after 2 months I'd go once, because I used to kind of feel myself, there was a certain way I would feel myself going to church, the way the preacher would speak the word of God, the encouragements that would come. So occasionally I would go to church, but just because I just wanted the preacher to just lift my spirits up. I'd go to church just because I wanted the preacher to just speak some nice words over myself. So I really never believed in church. So I went. I did as he told me. I went, I took my certificates, I went to the altar. I never knew how to pray. I went and I laid them on the altar, and I was like, God, I know you are here on this church. That was me praying. I know you're here on this altar, and I really want this job. So I am praying, please give me this job. And I will come back and I will pay my tithe. Yes, I was blubbering like that. And I took my certificates after kneeling there and praying 2 minutes prayer. And then I walked out of the church. I went home. That was on a Thursday. Now the Friday is when I was going for the interview. I got up, cleaned up very nicely. I went for the interview. Now the interesting thing is that I saw all these people that were there. They had a very thick, they had thick envelopes of their certificates all together, laid out nicely. And I had this thin certificate of mine. All I had was my eloquence and my very thin certificate and my background of my work background of where I was at the cyber cafe. And I literally felt very unqualified. I looked at everyone else. They were better than me in so many ways. And I remember sitting there telling myself, you know what, I'm just going to go there and I'm only going to be myself. I'm going to be myself. I'm going to tell them everything that is in my heart, because you know what, I came this far and I might as well just try the best I can. So I was called into the interview. I went there and I sat there. They told me, hi, Teddy, it's nice to meet you. Please tell us about yourself. I would take a few seconds to just think about the question, and then I would just give it out. I poured my heart out. I told them everything I knew. They asked me questions. I'd think and then I'd answer. And it went on and on and on. And they rose up and they told me, hey, Teddy, I was very nice to meet you. we will let you know if we have the job. And it was great. So see you. We'll reach out to you. And I walked out. I walked out with my head high, still intact, and I was like, God, I prayed. I told you that you to give me this job, and I did the best I can. So here it is. I'm going. So I went. And on Monday, I remember I got a call in the morning, and it was the most unexpected thing that I had. It was the most unexpected call that I've ever received in my entire life. Getting call from an unknown number, and I picked up, and they said, "Hi, Teddy. We have considered a lot of things, and we have seen that you were the perfect man for the job, and you are welcome today for an orientation. Are you able to come?" I told them, yes, I am able to come. So this job is going to require you, Teddy, to be as officially looking as the way you looked for the interview. So do you need time for you to go to buy yourself some official clothes, some nice looking suits like the way you were on? I told them, I have suits. You have not time to worry. I was excited. But I didn't want to give them another chance for them to kind of like say, you know what, we're going to go with the other person. So I told them that I have suits. I didn't have suits. I had to go borrow. So I was excited. I remember I was still in bed, contemplating whether I was gonna go back to the cyber cafe when I got that call. So I called my brother and I told him, hey, could you go and cover for me at the cyber cafe, and when she comes, my boss, tell her I left. Yeah, I know it wasn't the best way to do that, but I had to do that. I just had to. I was excited. It was thrilling for me. I wanted to get out of that job and go to another job. So I was excited. So I went and I borrowed a few clothes. I borrowed a few trousers from a buddy. I went to another buddy. I borrowed a few shirts. I went to another one. I borrowed a few blazers. Went to another one. I borrowed shoes and even didn't have shoes. But my friends came through for me, and I did have a full, I did have a full, almost half of a wardrobe. So I went for the orientation. I was excited. They told me, hey, Teddy, this is now your job. You have it secured. You can now plan out, we have seen you the best person for the job, and we are excited to have you. So feel free, feel at home. Everything is good. I was excited. That was on May 2018. Now, my life started changing that May. This is now the journey of how I came to know Christ, because I believe it started that day when I went to church and I told God I want this job. And from that particular time, I went and I bowed down on the altar and I prayed and I told God, I want you to give me this job. I can see the footprints of God, how He started leading me. He started calling me, placing instances in my path where they could just lead me to Him. I mean, I know that even from now I can see back all the way in my life, even though I never knew God, never acknowledged Him, I could see how God led me to Him, how God was just graciously guiding me in my life. But this particular time period, from May up until September, is how I saw God move pieces in my life strategically just to have me. And so it started when I got that job. So the name of the school was the French Language Institute. It was in Nakuru, and I was the new administrator. I was flashing. It was a whole flashing kind of an appearance for me. The place, the small town where I used to live, everybody could recognize that there was something different about me, because all of a sudden I'm wearing suits. And so they were excited. I had friends. People started wanting to get to know me. I kind of felt different. I had a spring on my step and I was alive. All of a sudden, I was lifted up. I remember that even though I got this new identity in the workplace where I still used to hang around the same people that I used to hang around. I was still a drug addict. I was still, I was addicted to marijuana, and I was so badly addicted to it because even as I was working there as a whole new administrator, I was still going back to the same people that I used to hang around, and we would smoke a lot of weed. And I remember I would go back in the morning. I would go to work in the morning, and my boss would be like, "Teddy, did you do the assignment that I gave you yesterday?" I'd be like, "No, I forgot to do that." And I remember she told me one thing that literally shifted my whole perspective. She told me, "Teddy, this job, you have to take it seriously because your next position is being the PA. And the PA comes with better influence. It comes with better pay as well. It comes with a better life." And I remember I was always, at that time, I used to live for the better. I used to live for the influence. I used to live, for the clicks and all that. It was the life for me. And the moment she told me that my next position was being a PA and I really needed me to be in my A game, I was excited about that. The same way I was excited for this job, I was excited for that until I remember I was like, no, I have to change. I have to become a better man. And the way I got this job was by praying. And if I prayed and I asked God to help me to get to this job, I think that if I pray again, then God will give me this new position. I was so naive. I went literally to the church and I said, I'm going to give my life to Christ just because I want this position. I want him to give me this PA. I want her to give me this PA position. And so I'm going to go to church. And then when they say, because I heard that they say that anyone wants to give their life to Christ, come forward. When they ask that, I'm going to rise up and I'm going to go. That was me thinking like that. I wanted the position so bad. I wanted the money so bad. I wanted the influence. It came with it. I went to church that Sunday and I gave my life to Christ. Oh my goodness. That my life started changing started going downhill. I know what I'm saying. I gave my life to Christ and my life started going downhill. Yes, not in the way you would think. Let me explain. When I gave my life to Christ, see, it was the wrong motive because I went there and I gave my life to Christ just because I could get this position. Because God had give me this, He gave me this job, and I thought that by giving my life to Christ, now He would lead me to get this position. But then now that's when things started going spiraling down. And I remember that I started doing strategic moves, like I stopped hanging around the guys that I used to hang around. The ones I'd come out of work and I would go there and I'd smoke a lot of weed with them because the weed was kind of making me redundant. I wasn't focusing with work. So I stopped altogether smoking weed. And I remember that I was trying the best I can to become the best employee just so that I can get this position. It went May and then June and then July, something happened. It was in June actually when I gave my life to Christ. Then things started going down. And then in July, something happened. I remember one day on a Monday morning, I am going to work. And then I was called. I was seated down and I was told, "Hi, Teddy, how was your weekend?" It was good. Great. All right, so here it is. We have come to an agreement and we have seen that business in Nakuru is really not doing so well. And so we have just come, it has been abrupt, yes, I know, but we have just come to an agreement that we are going to shift the business. We are going to take it to Nakuru because we are going to take it to Nairobi because most of the students that are learning French, they are opting to go to Nairobi to study at Alliance Francaise, which is our competitor, and we are having a difficulty keeping students in Nakuru. So we want to shift to Nairobi, but you so far have been the best employee that we have had. So when we build up our school, you're going to be the first person that we call. So I am sorry to tell you that today we are closing up shop, and I really hope that everything works out. And as she is saying all that she is saying, my head is going round like a boomerang, hitting every wall around me, and I am like, what is happening? I don't understand. Like, I was just already starting to figure out my life. I was already starting to plan out my life. The first 5 years, I was already planning. I was already like, what is happening? I couldn't hear what she was saying, but it all sounded as if I was not at work anymore. She told me to hand over the keys. I did. And the same way I came that morning, I went back home, my head down, everything crying out aloud. And that was September. That was July 2018, the end of it. I was coming into August. And I remember she told me that we will pay you for the September, and we hope and pray that everything works out for you. Things, as I said, had started spiraling down, and started really going down fast when I thought I gave my life to Christ. In fact, that's when I started really being so much addicted. Because back then I never understood, but now I understand that it was the devil. Like, oh, so you want to give your life to Christ, huh? So you want to, oh yeah, that's what you want to do? Okay, all right. So that time, August 2018, I have no job. I don't know what to do. I'm back at home. I'm trying to find some employment elsewhere. I can't go back to the cyber cafe because I really did not live on good terms. I am trying to find a job. I can't. I'm completely frustrated. I don't know what to do. I was paid my salary. That last salary I got paid, I remember in frantic I went and I paid 2-month rent on my house, and I bought a whole load of food in my house. I did a crazy kind of shopping. I guess I was afraid of dying hungry. So my sister was at the time coming from the States, and we were not at good terms at the time, because I had really done some bad things. Really, we had really kind of like fallen out at the time, so we were not at good terms. So she had that I was working at a good. She had heard that I had gotten my life around. So she was coming also to kind of witness that. So she came, and I told her, hey, so about the job that you had that I had, I kind of like it kind of like ended. And she was like, what do you mean it ended? Ted, you're so full of lies. You haven't changed at all. I heard that you changed, but you haven't. I guess she doubted me. She doubted that I had this nice job. I was finally looking nice. Her small brother was actually looking sharp, wearing suits and all that, working at a nice place, and she thought I had faked it all. It was sad. It was such a sad moment for me. And at the time, I was so lost. I was down to my last penny in August 2018. I was really very much depressed at the time. I was smoking all the weed I could get. All the friends, the funniest thing is that the friends that I had gained and at that period of the 3 months I was employed, I was living flashy life, they all deserted me. I was devastated. The friendships I had all deserted me. And I thought to myself, what is this? What is happening to me? The same people that I could call, the same people that would call me for favors and for money, I would flash out my money, and all of a sudden when I went broke, everyone left me. Even the girlfriend that I had at the time, she left me. Oh my goodness. All right, but it was an exciting moment, looking back, because at the time I was depressed, really, really depressed. But I was breaking down. I was breaking down when I heard my sister telling me that, Teddy, you're lying and you haven't changed. And I was being as honest as I could. And I remember I went to her asking her, hey, I just need you to just give me like a loan. Give me a loan of like 10,000, and I promise I'm not going to ask you anything more. Just give me 10,000. I'm going to go to Kikomba and I'm going to try and find some clothes I can come sell here, at least make a living, because I was already now living in this house that I can now not afford. Oh, I had made adjustments, crazy adjustments, and now it was scaring me. Now, she refused, and she was so adamant. I remember one day, because I kept calling her, because she was my only hope. In fact, at the time, I never knew any other way I could survive except only through my sister. I had her as a savior for myself. I had her as this person that I had placed high above God, high above everything. That if it were not her, then it would be nobody. My mother at the time was in Togo. Now, the story about my mom was that at the time she was in prison. Yeah, I was really brought up in a really, really broken home. But she was in prison at the time. She was in Togo. Yeah, so there was no way that I could communicate with her. At the time, it's so funny because in that prison, somehow she had a phone. The only way we could communicate with her was through a phone. So she had a phone, and so we could just text back and forth on WhatsApp. And in that period of August, I was telling her how I was going, how I was like doing on this side of the country, and it's exciting. It's very interesting because she had a call on her life. And she was also running away from God. And so in a way, in God's sovereignty, he had to capture her. And the way he did that, kind of like Jonah, he had to arrest her. And while she was in Togo, she gave her life to Christ, and she was a completely different person. So she was the one sending scriptures to me, telling me, Teddy, you should be born again. Teddy, you need to pray. At that time in August, where I had nobody else to talk to, I had no friends, all of them had deserted me. I had nobody to talk to. It was only my mom. So we would text back and forth. And the only time she would come back online was only in the evening. So I would wait until the evening and she would come. And every time she would just be giving me scriptures. I didn't want scriptures like this. God had failed me. Why are you telling me to go back to this God? Why are you sending me scriptures? Why are you telling me all this? Like my mom had never told me anything about God. I wasn't raised, she wasn't born again when she raised me. So I never knew anything about God. And all of a sudden now she's telling me this God is the one who's going to save me. And I was like, no, please tell me something different. I just want a job. I just want money, So she was hurting for me because she was all the way in a new country and she could not help me. She was helpless herself. And the only person that could help me was my sister. And my sister at the time was, it was the craziest thing I had never seen. Looking back, it was the hand of God. But at the time, she was something else. She was different. I was like, oh my God, even my own family. So the end of August, I was so persistent in my calling her because she was my only hope. She was my anchor. I knew nothing else. So I kept persisting. And one day when I called her, it was on a Sunday. She told me, at the time she was living in Naivasha. I was in Nakuru, like an hour away. I got into a matatu. She told me to go. I got into a matatu. I had 150 shillings. 150 shillings to my name. Yeah. And it was 100 shillings from Nakuru to Nairobi. So I got the 100 shilling. No, I had 200 shillings. Yes. I paid 100 all the way to Naivasha. And then from Naivasha town to where she was living was 50 shillings. So I paid the 50. I went to her place. And then when I get to this gated community where she was living in, of course, in those settings, the soldiers there cannot allow you to just, go in the way however you want. So they didn't know me. They asked me where you're going. I told her going to this house number, and they told me call the house number. Tell them, to call us. So I tried calling my sister. She wasn't picking. I called her the first time. I called her the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth. I called her the sixth, the seventh. I called her. She didn't pick. I was like, oh, it's getting late. And yeah, by the time I got there, it was around 7 p.m. in the evening. And she didn't pick. And I kept calling and calling. And finally she called. She picked up and she told me, Teddy, you know what? We are not at home. Just go back and we'll talk again tomorrow. When I was trying to tell her that I don't have money to go back home, she hung up and she never picked up again. And I was devastated. I didn't have money to go back home. I had 50 shillings now. And the 50 shillings is what I paid to go back to Naivasha town. And then when I got there, it was around 9 p.m. Yes, it was around 9 p.m. I didn't know how to go back home. I remember I went and I sat somewhere on a stone, and I started thinking, has this really where it has gotten me? Is this where my life has gotten me? I was devastated. I even forgot that I have an auntie that actually lives, like a few kilometers from there. But I didn't have any money, so I walked. And so by the time I got there to her place, it was 11 p.m. It was almost midnight. So I went to her gate and I started knocking. And she opened finally, and she came and she was astonished to see me, like, Teddy, is it you? I told her, yes, auntie, it's me. And oh my goodness, what's happening? What are you doing here so late? I told her, auntie, let me just get in and I'll tell you everything. And I came in, I was crying, and I told her, me, I'm done with family. Family can really do you so bad. And I cried there, and she gave me food and told me, but just sleep. I told her the entire story, and she gave me food. She told me to sleep. I slept there on her couch, and in the morning she woke me up, and she gave me fare. She gave me 500 shillings, and she told me to go home. Everything is going to be okay. She tried in her best way to encourage me. So I went. But I remember it was actually the 1st of September. I remember when I got home, I went and I locked myself. And the first thing I did actually when I got home in Nakuru was I went to my, pedi. Yeah, I went to my peddler and I bought a lot of weed. I remember I bought a lot of weed. I had a lot of food, still was no issue for me. I bought a lot of weed and I went and I stashed it in my house. So all I could do in the house from that 1st September 2018 was just smoke weed. Wake up in the morning, I would smoke weed, go for breakfast and come back. As others are going to work, I'd go get breakfast, come back home, smoke weed, watch movies, repeat that the first day, the second day, the third day. And it was just continuous. It's something that went on and went on and went on. But then now the story now shifts when it got to Wednesday. I remember these days as if they were yesterday, because these were the very foundational days that laid out my life as to what it is today. So on the 5th, which was on a Wednesday of September 2018, I remember I was watching The Punisher. It was very vivid. I was watching The Punisher, the movie, and I had smoked. At that point, I was smoking a lot of weed and nothing would actually satisfy me anymore. I would smoke one and then I'd smoke another and then I'd smoke another, and then at least maybe when I've smoked 5 of them, that's when I at least feel. Because at the time I had voices in my head. Everything was a shamble. Everything was so bad. My mind was something else, cluttered. That Wednesday, I got up like usual. I smoked my weed and I cooked some food and I put on the movie and I locked myself. I upped the volume so loud and I was listening and I was like watching. I wasn't really watching. I was watching through it. But that's when everything happened in slow motion. Everything started happening in slow motion. I started seeing things in slow motion and everything. So here's the details of how it actually started happening. I remember that there were voices in my head telling me, Teddy, it's all over for you. Nobody cares about you. Your family has deserted you. Your family has left you. All of your friends are gone. Everyone has left you. Nobody really cares. And at that time, I am trying my very best to sink these thoughts down. And the only thing that could do that was weed, and then this weed wasn't no longer working. And I didn't know how to do it anymore. I started pacing back and forth in my apartment, really feeling like I had lost it. But the craziest thing that the craziest thing that I really didn't want, because I always heard that, you know, a lot of weed could really make you lose your mind. And I had never pictured myself to be one of those people that, you know, go around in the streets like losing their minds. I was like, no. So this voice kept telling me, Teddy, you're done. Your mom is not there. Your sister has left you. Everyone has gone. Nobody cares about you. Just take your life and die. And as I was pacing back and forth in my apartment, I was actually considering taking my own life. I was down on my last rope. And so I got up. The music, the sound of the movie is so loud. I'm not even listening to the movie. At this point, I'm just pacing back and forth, just so frantic. I went to the kitchen. I looked, in fact, when this voice was actually telling me to kill myself, I fear pain myself. That's why I have no tattoo. I really fear pain. And I was actually thinking, how can I kill myself? How can I off myself without feeling pain? And this voice so loud telling me, you know what, Teddy, just take a knife and slit your wrist. And then blood will just flow, and then you will just sleep. And then I thought that was a good idea. You know what, nobody cares about me anymore. Let me just undo myself. So I thought to do that. I actually went to the kitchen and I looked at the knife. I stared at the knife. And I thought of just, how do I do it? How do I like pick the knife and slit my wrist just like that? And as I was just contemplating, thinking about how I can do that, now, the most interesting thing happened. At that particular time, at that instant, I had another voice. But then now this other voice was telling me, Teddy, you want to kill yourself? I said, yeah. In frustration, I said, yes, I want to kill myself. Nobody cares about me. I want to die. I just want to get out of this world. But then this voice was coming so loudly, audibly, but then it was coming from here. I'd never, ever in my entire life felt something like that before. I have smoked a lot of weed, but that it had never come to a point where I was speaking to a voice that was so comforting, that was so soothing, it was soft. This other voice was telling me to kill myself was coming from here. It was like a frustration, was like a ringing bell, it was like a gong happening in my head, like every time knocking so that I cannot reason. But then this other voice was bringing reason into my heart and was telling me, Teddy, why do you want to kill yourself? Nobody cares. I was like literally speaking to somebody in the house, but I was alone. Nobody cares about me. I just want to die. I just want to relieve myself of this pain that I have. But then this voice started telling me, Teddy, what about your small sisters? And then I started thinking about my small sisters, the way they love me. What about your mother, how she cares about you? Don't you think it's going to be unfair for her? I cried. I started weeping. At that point, I had not even thought about my small sisters. I had never even thought about my mother, the kind of pain it would cause her just for her to hear that I had killed myself. I went and I sat there and I wept and I wept and I wept. And it hit me. hey, who the heck is talking to me? Like, I'm really listening to somebody talk to me. And they are putting so much reason. I mean, I have smoked weed, but I have never had kind of wisdom like this before. I was like, no, I don't want to kill myself. And then this voice started talking to me again, started telling me, you know what, it's not good for you to be alone. Call somebody so that you can be with somebody. At least now you cannot harm yourself when you're alone. And then I thought, who do I call? My bro had just gone to work. I remember his wife is actually just there. So her name is Shiko. I called her. I told her, hey, Shiko, why don't you just come here for like 5 seconds, for like a few minutes. Just come, just come. I told her, she told me, Teddy, I'm doing something, I'm doing this and that. I was like, oh my God, what do I make her to come to me, to come here? I told her, hey, Shiko, I have this movie. I know she loves movies. I told her, hey, I have this movie that you've been wanting so bad to watch. Why don't you come? And then, so she comes. And by some God's grace, she takes like a few minutes to get there. And I tell her, hey, Shiko, I want you to do this. I want you to just sit there and you watch your movie, and I'm just going to be here. So please just don't talk to me. And she was looking at me like, what's happening with you? It's like, no, you know what? Just sit there. Just don't talk to me. Just watch your movie. I just want to be by myself here. And I remember that I wanted to write this down because all this was insane. I was experiencing something I had never experienced before. A voice talking to me, and it had a lot of wisdom, and it was making me feel so good. So I wanted to write it down, but I had no place to write it. All of a sudden, I could not find a pen. In my own house, I could not find a pen. But it was very, very strategic that I could not find that pen. So I took my iPhone and I started typing it down. And as I was typing, every word that was coming from the voice. And so I'm going to read it. I marked it as reborn. And here the date is telling me it's 5th September 2018 at 3:58 p.m. And so this is what it said. The voice. At the time, I didn't know it was the Holy Spirit. But now, I know it was the Holy Spirit. But the voice was telling me, talk to Mom. I'm literally writing every letter that I wrote. Every word I wrote. Because I could hear like a whole sentence and I would type it down. And then I would listen. And then I would hear another sentence and I would type it down. So it said, talk to Mom. Tell her that my life is compromised and I want her opinion and that I'm going to listen to her, whatever she tells me. And make a promise with myself that I will listen to the letter, follow her instructions, and each and every word she tells me. Ask for advice wherever I have been confused. Tell her about my situation that I'm living in this side of the country. And since she's my mother, she always has the best interest in her son. And of course, the Bible says that we listen to our parents because they are our gateway to heaven, and that it's a blessing to have parents who care about the Lord God. And, you know, listening to this now, it's like such a wonderful father talking to a child. And at that time, I was such a child. And he was so comforting to me. All this was something I had never experienced. And it was also new to me. And so it says, it continues, tell her that I'm in need of salvation and a new comeback to this new life as a Christian who believes in God, the Creator. Let her be the guardian of my life now that she is living away of the Lord, of the way to God. And it says, make a change, Teddy. Choose. That was profound for me because this was how I was taken. This was how this was the instructions that I was receiving at the time. And it was like a father, it was like a parent talking to a child, a small child. And at that time, I was the smallest I could be. And I felt so relieved. I felt so loved at the time. I felt so touched. And even though I felt alone, all of a sudden, this voice was making me feel wanted. All of a sudden, I felt I felt cared for. I felt somebody, at least somebody is listening to me. I don't know who this is though. I don't know where it's coming from, because it's coming from inside of me, and I have never experienced that before. And at that time, I really can say that I wasn't high. In fact, all the weed had gone off. I was as sober as I could have been. Now, the voice told me to talk to Mom. I knew that my mother comes back online at night, and I knew that was the only way that I could talk to her. So I waited. She came back online at night, and I started texting her, and I told her everything that happened. I told her how I almost killed myself. And then she told me the most interesting thing. She told me, Teddy, I want you to do this. In the morning, I need you to get up, and I need you to go to church. Talk to your pastor, tell him everything that you have told me, and then tell him that you want to be born again. I was like, my God, I mean, okay, is that serious? Is it serious? But then I thought about, okay, well, I promised this voice that I'm going to do what this voice tells me. And I knew that I owed it to my mom, and I owed it to this voice, and I owed it even to myself to do what it actually said, because at that point I was going to kill myself. So there was nothing that was going to be as bad as it was going to get. Okay, so I said, you know what, I'm going to do that, because at that point I was now getting scared, like what's happening. So I went to sleep. Well, Shiko went to her place, I went to sleep, and now the most interesting thing happened. I had dreams, but then these were not like dreams. In the night, I had visions. I had never experienced anything like this before. I mean, I have had dreams, but then not like this. They were like I was there. There was like I was physically there. I cannot explain it. And we were in the clouds somewhere, and then we were all being hanged, but I wasn't dying. They were dying. And I would see them getting hanged, and then below us there was this bottomless pit. It was so dark. You could feel the dark. You could feel the darkness. It was very, very, I ran, and when I got to the top of the hill, I saw the most spectacular thing I had never ever, and I think I'll never even see something that was as beautiful as what I saw. I saw paradise. I saw people. East. The peace there was as tangible as the darkness that I felt on the clouds in the second vision. There was such a tangible peace, and there was such a very present presence of God, and it was the most beautiful thing I had never seen. And I was there. I saw it with my own eyes. Hey, thank you for watching this video until the end. I hope you've been encouraged. I hope you've been enlightened. Now like and subscribe to all the socials, and see you next time.